2024 is going to be here before we know it. The Gophers have a ton of returning production, but who or what groups are the positions of strength?
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota
Whatever
Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
What is up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you know what? It hasn't been every day over this month of May, but I appreciate y'all. We are back. We are tapped in. We are ready to go for the off season. We're going to be giving you 3 shows every single day of the week. Well, not 3 shows every day. That would be wild. That would be a ton of shows. But in this off season, we are going to do 3 shows a week up until August. Once we hit August, we're going to go back to the 5 shows a week. I appreciate your patience. You know, it's a slow new time here in the Golden Gophers off season. But on top of that, we've had some things going on at home as far as anniversaries, first Mama's Day, and all sorts of different things going on. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you tapping in when we do have shows, but we are back at it and ready to grind here in June. So if you haven't came across the podcast net yet, I welcome you. I encourage you to tap in every single day. If you have comments, questions, you want to know more thoughts on this offseason, drop them in the comments below over on YouTube so I can get those going for shows here on Locked On Golden Gophers. But I appreciate you listening each and every day. A few of y'all checked in over on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, and I appreciate y'all as well. But let's dive into some big Gophers talk today. We've got 2 football topics, 1 basketball topic. And we're going to talk about the most important game of the second half of the 2024 season for the Gophers football team. Now, when we did do our last show, we talked about the most important game of the first half. We've got the flip side of that today. Then we're going to talk about positions of strength. What are the key position groups, the strongest position groups for the Gophers football team, and also positions we're still questioning on both sides of the ball. And then finally, we're going to talk about Cam Christie, who is headed to the NBA, and why you should fully support him, fully back him, and stop being salty. So if you want to hear that and more, and you want to listen to Gophers content at least 3 days a week in the off season, and then every single day of the week once we get back in it, be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube. Now, let's talk about the most important game of the second half of the 2024 season, because I know it has been a little bit here, but the last time we chatted, we talked about the most critical game for the first half of the Gopher season. And if you haven't checked that out yet, be sure to give it a listen, because we reasoned down on what of the first 6 games would be the most important, and we narrowed it down to UNC or Iowa, and we ultimately landed on the Iowa game. Now, I want to dive into the final 6 games of the Gopher season and which game is most critical there. Now, in these final 6 games, only 2 of the games are at home. All the rest are on the road. One of those 2 is probably the most difficult opponent for the Gophers in the entire 2024 season in Penn State. So I will tell you right now, plain and simple, neither of those home games are the most critical to me in that back half of the season. The final 6 games for the Minnesota Gophers are at UCLA versus Maryland, at Illinois, at Rutgers versus Penn State, and then at Wisconsin. Now, right away, I'm going to remove UCLA. I'm going to remove Penn State, and I am going to remove Maryland. Now, for UCLA, I think they're going to be a bottom 2 team in the Big Ten Conference, and that is a game Minnesota should absolutely win at the Rose Bowl. I think Minnesota will have some good fan turnout out there as well, but I think they're going to have a tough time transitioning, and they're going to have a tough time with their new coach. So I think overall, Minnesota should be able to put that game away. Maryland, you know, they are a winnable game with all of the massive changes and departures. So it's not something that I see as most critical, but hopefully the Gophers can pull that one off. And then for Penn State, similar to what we said for Michigan, Minnesota will not be expected to win that game and may not be given the odds to even compete in a game like that by Las Vegas. So I am hopeful that the Gophers can prove that wrong and be competitive, but it isn't make or break for their success on the year. So that brings us to at Illinois, at Rutgers, and at Wisconsin as the 3 games to narrow it down to. Now, though I am tempted to put another diehard rivalry, I'm not going to. So I'm ruling out Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin could be drastically better in year 2 with Coach Fickell. And though I do believe Minnesota can make it competitive, it being positioned at the end of the season doesn't mean as much to me because there is no West Division, East Division. There is no West Division winner anymore, meaning there is very, very slim opportunity that there is an extra results on the line with that matchup. Now, of course, I still want to bring the Aggies back. Of course, that game means some of the most to me on the entire season personally, but when it comes to most critical for the Gophers' success in the next season, I don't think it is quite there. So I'm going to take that one off the table. So it isn't going to be the 2 rivalry games for first and second half. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with Illinois and Rutgers. And I think my answer for you might be a little bit surprising. So you've got Illinois, you've got Rutgers, 2 games back-to-back weeks prior to a late bye week for Minnesota. So both of them are going to be pretty critical for Minnesota before they have the opportunity to take a breather, get healthy, and get right before they take on some big challenges. Meaning that if at that point in the season, I am hopeful Minnesota has beaten Rhode Island, has beaten Nevada, has beaten UCLA, and has beaten Maryland. That's 4 wins right there, plus hopefully maybe found a way to win the opener or versus Iowa. So that is at worst case scenario for me. If you pull that off, that means you have 5 wins heading into these 2 games of Illinois and Rutgers. Now, that means if you're sitting at 5-3 or hopefully better, and you're heading into this 2-game stretch, 1 more win locks up bowl eligibility and hopefully spurs other wins. Now, for that reason alone, I think I'm going to take Illinois as the most critical game of the second half. And there's lots of storylines with that. PJ Fleck finally beating Brett Bielema. That hasn't happened, even though it should have in 2 of the last 3 years. On top of that, it is redeeming last year's last second collapse versus Illinois in the final 2 minutes of game when it was 4th and long and they knocked out their quarterback and all of a sudden their backup comes in, drives the field, scores, and we lose the game. You got to redeem that. So hopefully that is another inspiring moment. Plus, Illinois looks worse on paper. So you add that up, plus you hope it leads to confidence and momentum of hopefully a 3-game winning streak looking to go keep it going next week versus Rutgers. And what do I mean by that? I mean, hopefully we beat UCLA, hopefully we beat Maryland, and then you're going to play Illinois on the road. If you take that, that's a 3-game win streak, and you're going to play Rutgers the next week with the extra added motivation of Ethan Kaliak-Manis being their starting quarterback, with the extra added motivation of their offensive coordinator, Kirk Shiraka, coming from here, their defensive coordinator, Harris Simiak, coming from here. Lots of ties between Rutgers and Minnesota, and I could see why fans might pick that one, but I think this Illinois matchup helps give you more momentum and it helps set you up better, and hopefully it is a game that you can help clinch your bowl eligibility. So I am stamping Illinois as the most important game of the back half of the season. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know where I went wrong or why you disagree. I would love the feedback, love the thoughts, and love who your second half critical game is down in the comments over on YouTube. Now, coming up next, we're going to dive into the Gophers' positions of strength and the positions of question. We're going to go on the offense and the defense. We're diving into a deep dive of these position groups, so you're not going to want to miss that here at Locked On Golden Gophers. First, I got to talk to you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are the right role for your team. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the professionals that are right for your team faster and for free. And it's on one of the biggest platforms out there in the entire internet. That's right. So if LinkedIn Jobs isn't just a job board, LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. And even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And on top of that, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So you can hire professionals like a professional over on LinkedIn. So definitely give it a try, because LinkedIn Jobs knows small businesses are wearing so many different hats and you have so much to do that you might not have the time or the resources to hire. So they're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even launched a feature to help you write job descriptions, making the process quicker. So post about your job for free over at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post about your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Gophers fans, while we're at it, don't forget to go over to Locked On Minnesota Sports, where you can get all of your daily Minnesota sports talk, from the Wild to the Gophers to the Twins to the Timberwolves and the Vikings. It's going to be hot Vikings territory here as Justin Jefferson brought the bag home with $140 million. You can find out all the latest and greatest over at the Locked On Minnesota Sports channel, where they have a 24/7 channel dedicated to Minnesota sports, and it is constantly having live shows. So you want to tap in over there, make sure you don't miss it. But let's dive in to the Gophers and their positions of strength and the positions of question in the 2024 season for the football team. Now let's stay on the offensive side first. We're going to talk about positions of strength, and I think there's 2.5. I'm going to go with the offensive line. They have 4 starters back, plus you have Greg Johnson, who started multiple games, or I think he started 1 or 2 games as a true freshman last year, but he played in multiple games throughout the entire year. He is going to be taking over at center. So you've got him filling the vacancy, and then you've got 4 other starters beside him. This could be Minnesota's strongest position group across the board of the whole team, in my opinion. And that's a good thing, because the trenches are going to be extremely important in the new Big Ten, with 18 teams, with some dogs, with the current champion, with the current runner-up. All those programs are in the Big Ten now all of a sudden. So the trenches are going to be the thing you need to win in order to find success. So who wins the battle at right tackle? That's going to be something to keep an eye on between Martez Lewis and Phillip Daniels. I wouldn't be shocked if Phillip Daniels found a way to get it done. But on the flip side of that, the young offensive linemen waiting in the wings in the background, they could definitely find themselves more reps and opportunities to work within the 2 deep to get experience. And then all of a sudden you're talking about a squad that you're hoping you have massive confidence in, even in the further positions, even in the deep pockets, the 2s, the 3s of the offensive line, ready to fill some massive vacancies next season when you likely lose Ariante Ursery, Quinn Carroll, Tyler Cooper, and maybe potentially another starter. Who knows? You could lose up to 4 starters, most likely 3, but that offensive line is definitely a position of strength for Minnesota. Another position of strength, and one that maybe rivals the offensive line, is the running back room. Darius Taylor by himself, the man, the myth, the legend. He makes this room a strength by himself. But then you add in an all MAC freshman who had a successful sophomore year, but he is coming over to Minnesota. You have a bruiser from Oklahoma coming in. And on top of that, you have the trusted running back in JoJo Newbin, who had a 200-yard game last year against Michigan State. If there is any position that could rival the offensive line, it is absolutely the running back room when it comes to the best position for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So they're strong, they're deep, and they have some young guys waiting in the wings, and Jaden Wright, Afame Ijiboy, and a few others as well. So get ready for this team to run the rock like crazy, and expect 60% or more of the offense to be running the ball. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. This team is run first, and they're going to continue to do so in 2024. And then my half strength, I'm going to say the wide receiver room. Now, my case for this is going to be very quick. Daniel Jackson. He is an all Big Ten second-team receiver who is back, and pairing with an all FCS quarterback, there's a lot of upside in that statement alone. And in the fact they also have Brockington, who has looked like the best receiver in these spring sessions with Daniel Jackson hurt. He has stepped up. He's playing with a newfound confidence and a level that makes you think you have a quality wide receiver too to pair across from Daniel Jackson. And then I still believe in Elijah Spencer as well, but it will be do or die for him in the last year of his eligibility. So there are some names that have had production in the past or shown the upside that are in this room. And I am very intrigued by it, to say the least. Now, positions of question on the offense. We've got the quarterbacks. I think Max Brosmer has a chance to be the best quarterback we have seen for the Gophers in maybe the last decade, but many will hate or be hesitant until they see it translate, because FCS. People are going to use that as a reason day and night. And I think the upside of Max Brosmer is big for this team. I think the upside of a Drake Lindsay is big for this team. But the thing at the quarterback is nothing is proven or certain at the Big Ten level. So that's why it is a position of question. Another position of question is the tight end room. There are a whole lot of highly rated prospects in this group. And there are 2 veterans in Jamison Gears, Nick Callerup, who have been in this room for many years getting production on the field. And then you have have Pierce Walsh, who might be my favorite player in that tight end group. He has hands, he has the fluidness, he could be a stud tight end for years to come. And then you've got Julian Johnson, Jacob Simpson, Sam Peters, who all with Pierce Walsh are redshirt freshmen or true freshmen, meaning they have 4 years of eligibility to keep this room bright and full of untapped potential moving forward. So there's lots of hope, lots of progress, lots of potential, but nothing proven. That's why it's a position of question. And then finally, the wide receivers. Yep. I am having them both in the strength and the position of question because, like I said, Daniel Jackson, absolute stud, but there is a ton of untapped potential and promise in this room among the last 2 classes, but that's exactly what it is, untapped. Caleb Lanier, TJ McWilliams, Nuke Hayes, all have had moments or showed promise in the spring or earned positive notes from their coaches. And then you add in Tyler Williams, who's transferring in from Georgia in that same class, plus a true freshman in Jalen Smith, whom PJ Fleck talked about a ton when he introduced this upcoming recruiting class. And you have the addition of Christian Driver coming from Penn State, his dad, and a Hall of Fame Packer. That is 6 wide receivers with 3+ years of eligibility, but almost 0 production. So the upside can only be talked about so much. We need to see it on the field and come to fruition, hence the position of question. Now, flipping it to the defense, we're going to fly through these a little bit quicker. Strength, we've got the edge room. This room is deep. I mean, Coach Debo is killing the game for Minnesota when it comes to the talent in this room, and it should make Minnesota extremely intriguing to be a surprising team when it comes to the pass rush in 2024 and beyond, because you've got Josh Joyner, who is already one of the best in the nation when it comes to creating pressure, and he turned those into actual sacks last year. I believe it had 7.5. You've got Danny Sturgow, who brings dependability, who brings leadership, who brings consistency, and then you've got Jackson Howard transferring from LSU to Minnesota, true or redshirt freshman, 4 years of eligibility. He is a star in the making, and Minnesota is going to get that man on the field. And then I almost forgot that Adam Kasai transferred from Clemson. He will be a true freshman. He is a massive human being, and he has massive upside if he can reach his untapped potential. So you've got stuff waiting in the wings. You've got stuff production going on right now. And I haven't even mentioned the name of the guy that NFL scouts have been asking about for the past 2 years now in Anthony Smith. He's going to be a dog. He's ready to take the next step. Carter Menz is a guy who gives you another name deep in this room. That's 6 deep with the upside. Coach Debo has something special cooking on the edge. And then the linebackers. I'm interested to see how Coach Heatherman puts it together in this room. He has hella talent from Cody Lindenberg, Maverick Baranowski, who could both be stars in the Big Ten. Then you've got Devin Williams, who has speed and he is suffocateable. Then you've got young bucks like Eli Mao, like Tyler Stolsky, who I believe both have gone from walk-on to scholarship players this upcoming year. And then you've got Mason Carrier, Matthew Kingsbury, who could be the next in line. This room is full of it was full of very little experience last year. Tons of unproven production, or unproven talent, I should say. But also due to the injuries of last year, it ravaged this defense. Now, many of these players have in-game reps. They have that confidence. They have the understanding of what it takes in this room, holds a ton of intrigue. And then you bring in the head of the defense, Coach Heatherman, using this as his position group. It's going to be big time for the linebackers. Lots of interesting intrigue there. Then the nickel position is last one of strength. Henderson has proven himself. I think he takes an even bigger leap in year 2. And then you've got Craig McDonald, Giante McMillan also enter the conversation. That has a ton of players with key snaps from big universities. This is a room I have a little worry about, and I think they could create a ton of turnovers for this Gophers defense. Now, flipping it to the position of question, my most nervous position for the Gophers on the defense is the interior defensive line. I think Devin Eastern's a stud. I think he's going to go even crazier this year. I think he's going to be super productive. I think he's going to make a name for himself on this defense. But aside from him, I don't know if we have the interior push to pair with him or to keep going if he needs a breather or anything like that. Last year, Kyler Ball went crazy, but he's gone. He's off to the Saints now. Jalen Logan Redding, who might be better served as an edge player, has been playing on the interior a ton. Maybe he takes another step. Maybe Logan Richter takes another step, but there's not a ton of confidence aside from Devin Easton right now on who will step up. So there are some worries. There is some shakiness with all the edge help on the outside. You need the interior pressure to help those outside guys get the time to complete the pressure and get home on the sack. So the interior defensive line is something I am definitely a little worried about. And then the cornerback room, I think it's questions there, but there's a lot of upside. Justin Wally, Ethan Robinson, those are probably starters for you. They both have the opportunity to be really, really good players on that cornerback room. And then I think Zaquan Brylan Kelly, and Mike Gerald, all guys that have high intrigue that could be big time. I think Zaquan Bryant's going to make a name for himself this upcoming season. So I am intrigued by the cornerback room, but we haven't seen a ton of production, similar to the wide receivers beyond Daniel Jackson. So that's why I've got them in a position of question. And then finally, the safeties I have in the position of question. Tons of talent in this room. It feels like there's a ton of depth in this room, but who will actually be the starters? Newbin leaves a ton of snaps behind. Darius Green didn't necessarily do anything or do enough, I should say, to be 100% locked for next year's starter. Coleman Bryson has moments. Kerry Brown has moments. And then there's the number one recruit of this year's class in Coy Parrish, who Minnesota fought off Ohio State, Florida State to keep him here, meaning he'll likely be a factor sooner than later. A ton of upside, but again, nothing proven. So that's the positions of strength, the position of question here with the Minnesota football team. Who are you most intrigued by? What is your favorite position? I want to know it all down in the comments below. And we're going to wrap up today's show by talking about the Gophers' next NBA prospect in Cam Christie. Where could he get drafted and more coming up next. First, let's talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, because it's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. That's $150 in bonus bets to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. And when I go over to FanDuel right now and I take a look at it, you know I'm looking at my boys. You know I'm looking at Jason Tatum and the Celtics in the finals playing the Mavericks. And I'm hoping all you Minnesota fans are ready to cheer on the Celtics as well, because look, Luka did y'all dirty with all the trash talk and everything like that. So we got to put him out of his misery. We got to quiet him down, and the Celtics can hopefully do just that. They are favored in game 1 of the NBA Finals at 6.5 points. So Vegas thinks that the Celtics are going to win that game by potentially 7 or more. It's going to be tight. I think that might be a little bit larger than what one would guess. So if you think the Celtics are going to win by 6 or less, or they're going to lose, then go ahead and take a shot at the Dallas Mavericks. But I'm locking in the C's all day anyway. So you can take a shot and get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. Go and take your chance with FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, Gophers fans, we're wrapping up today's show talking about Cam Christie, because Cam Christie is still climbing up the draft boards after the NBA draft combine. But I still wonder how high he really could have gone had he participated in the scrimmages of the NBA draft combine, which he chose to pass on. But regardless, the latest Bleacher Report mock I saw had him at 39. The latest ESPN mock I saw had him at 35. The latest Yahoo Sports mock had him at 33. And the latest Ringer mock, which was over like 20 days ago, what had him at 58. So overall, he's all over the board, but a lot of places have him in that 30s range, which would put him at the very early of the second round. Now, maybe someone takes a swing at the potential and the upside in him in the late first, but I think it's more than likely he will be a second round pick in this year's draft, but he is officially creeping up. The NBA likes his scoring prowess, especially the three-point shooting and the mid-range game. He can pull up, he can create in those areas, and he even showed glimpses of good defense when he was here with Minnesota last year. Now, his biggest areas of growth that are needed is he has to be able to attack the basket inside on the drive and getting stronger, being stronger defensively if switched onto a 4 or a stretch player. But looking at some of his offseason training, this dude has been grinding. He looks like he has gotten stronger. He looks like he's put on a little bit of weight, and that is a good thing for his prospects. Now, to me, Cam Christie reminds me a ton of Chris Middleton in his play style and his abilities. Now, that said, he mentioned players that he loves to watch are Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, and now for those Gopher fans who are salty about Cam Christie and said, who cares? He put his name into the portal. You should care, because this kid is about to be the first Gopher drafted in the NBA draft since 2020 in Daniel Truru, or the second in over a decade. I believe the last one that actually came from just Minnesota was Chris Humphries in 2004. So support your guy, whether he put his name in the portal or not. He played only for Minnesota, and now he is headed to the draft. Now, Cam Christie, in an interview with Andy Katz, basically said he had not thought about college at all, and or what that decision could be, as he was completely locked in on the NBA process and practicing and getting ready for that. That told me two things. It told me he wasn't afraid to take the same route as his brother, but it also told me Minnesota truly could have been considered had he decided to come back to school, because of the system, because of the coaches, because of his teammates, not having to relearn a process, relearn offense, get integrated into a new system, but being able to play fast and up to speed immediately and having a huge role. That would help him in the long run. Now, of course, he could have looked other places to get the nice payday and everything like that, but he mentioned that the portal was a suggestion from his agent to have all of his options open just in case, which makes sense, and makes sense with that last day entry. But those saying he betrayed Minnesota and things like that, get over yourself and cheer for your alum, who is likely to be the first Gopher drafted in 4 years and the second Gopher drafted in over 2 decades. Like, suck it up and let's support our guy Cam Christie, who hopefully can be playing in the NBA, putting his name in the conversation like Amir Coffey, maybe even finding a bigger role. Now, it's going to take some development. Reading the tea leaves, I thought Cam Christie was going to be after the NBA, and now he is. He will be drafted, I think, and Minnesota is going to have its first draft pick in the last 4 years. So I think you need to support, show love, and cheer on Christie in this process, and hopefully he can land with an organization who will really invest in his long-term upside and his ability. We've seen what Max Christie can do and how he is growing in his role in the NBA. I think Cam Christie can be even better, and that only does wonders for your Gophers and showing others that you can come from Minnesota's program and still make your way to the NBA. So that's going to do it for us here at Locked On Golden Gophers. I'm glad to be back. I hope you're tapped in. We're going to be sure to have 3 shows every week for June and July, and then we'll be back at 5 shows a week in August. I'll keep you posted here at Locked On Golden Gophers. Until next time, roll the boat, Sky, my Go Gophers, as always, and don't forget to hit subscribe.